Thank you. All right. So this is Smartsheet 101, Master the Basics. So hopefully you guys got an idea of what this is going to cover based on our description and kind of the information that we gave you. But this is a complete basic beginner training for Smartsheet. So if you just got your license and you don't know much about it, or you're thinking of getting a license maybe, and you're just really new to Smartsheet, this is a very good place to start. If you already know a lot about Smartsheet, you're welcome to hang out. Hopefully, you'll still learn something new. But this is a beginner training, so I just want to make that very clear. Um, all right. So this is what we're going to be going over today. So logging in and resources, the Smartsheet interface itself, features and functionality, and then future trainings, and basically just getting started from here. So just quick introductions. I'm Jillian Travis. I'm a program specialist with finance and administration. I work primarily in Smartsheet, and I have for the last, since we got it basically, like 6-7 years. Some of you may know me already. I help a lot of people throughout the HSC get their stuff going, and with any questions. And Dina, I'll let you give an introduction.
Yeah, so I'm Dina Duran, and I'm a senior business analyst with the HSC Finance and Administration team. A lot of what I do is in Smartsheet as well, and so I know one of the things that we love to be able to do is to help support you all with Smartsheet because there's we know that there's so many great benefits to it, and we want to help everyone to feel comfortable in Smartsheet and to be excited to use it because once you're comfortable, then you can be excited to keep on going. So that's one of the big reasons why we love doing the Smartsheet 101 training is that we want to be sure that it doesn't seem intimidating because once you get started and get going, um, those creative juices will get flowing. But Jillian will be leading to, today's training, and she's definitely our wonderful resource here.
And I'm sure Dina will catch anything that I miss because she knows it so well. So, all right, let's keep going. So, logging in and resources. We're gonna start at the very beginning. A lot of this is gonna be in Smartsheet itself. So I'm gonna hop out of the PowerPoint and go ahead and get us into Smartsheet. Well, if it lets me, just a second. Okay, everybody's seeing the web page now.
Perfect. Yes.
Awesome. All right, so sorry, just getting everything together here. Okay, so one of the things I really like to mention to people is not to go to smartsheet.com. You can get to our login page through smartsheet.com, but it takes you in a roundabout kind of way. You go put your email address, and then it's like, okay, well, do you want to log in with your company account? And then you have to click yes, and then you have to go and log in again. So I recommend that everybody remember, bookmark, write down our single sign-on page, which is Smartsheet oh, .health.unm.edu. It's right there on the top. When you bookmark it, I also recommend going in to edit your bookmark and make sure that it only says this, what you're seeing here, because it will add like IDP. It'll add some wording in there. If you just click the star and bookmark it, make sure it says exactly this in your bookmark when you go to edit it. In the URL, not the name, you can name it whatever you want, but the URL itself needs to look exactly like this. Or sometimes you'll have some issues where it'll say like session timeout, things like that. So I do want to make that very clear because that's like number one issue that I have is people saying, oh, I can't log in. You should always be able to log in at this web URL and with your HSC net ID and password. It's never going to be different. It's always going to be your net ID, not your email, your net ID and password. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get to this page here. I wanted to show you this first because if you see, you can see a page is loading here. If it's going to load for me, I hope it does. Okay, there we go. So you can see I have my login on this side, but this dashboard, this Smartsheet dashboard, pops up every single time you come to the single sign-on page, and this is essentially your resource dashboard. So you can see we have some information here about the training that we're having today. There's also a lot of different forms here. So if you want to join the Smartsheet user group, if you aren't already, that's there. If you need to request a license, cancel a license, transfer a license, that link is also here. Um, Same thing if you have a question, if you need help with something, that's there. There are these Smarty support sessions that me and Dina hold every, is it Tuesday? I believe it's every Tuesday. And you can book one of those. And then we ask that if you're using Smartsheet for FERPA, you fill out this form here because then it goes to the appropriate people to basically tell you if you're able to do it or not. Um, and then there's just some other information on here, some helpful links, some FAQs. Um, any kind of important thing, we will try to put it on here. But also, we have our resource hub right here, which is really important. So if I click on this resource hub, it's, oh no, that's not good. Did you have issues with Smartsheet this morning?
Ye Let me go check
Oh.
the status page, but also maybe that's a fun thing to show people how to get
Yeah,
to
show
the
people the
status
our
page.
status page. It looks like it's working now, maybe slowly. Hopefully we're not having any issues. Okay, so this is our resource hub. You can see it gives us information on all the premium applications that we have access to, which you can definitely click through that. But what I like is if you scroll down, there's this other support portal. Um, and when you click on that, it gives you all of the resource information you really need. So you can always book a Smarty session with me and Dina. You can always reach out to me and Dina to if you have a question or oh no, if you have a question or something, you can go to me and Dina. But we, if we're busy, or can't get back to you right away, and you really need that help right away, you do have these options. So this is Jamie. He's our Smartsheet Success Manager. You can always reach out to him with little questions too, and he'll get back to you if he can. If you're actually wanting to show someone your process and get some help in the process itself, um, you can do a pro desk session, which we just got an email. I don't know if you saw that, Dina. We got an email that we have unlimited pro desk sessions now. They used to be limited. We had like 10, 30-minute sessions a year, but now they're unlimited. So definitely book those and use them. Sometimes you have to book them kind of far out, like they're taken, so you have to, it's like a month or so away. But it's a really great resource because that's what the Smartsheet support um, employee. So they're of course going to be extremely knowledgeable on whatever you're trying to do. Usually, if I can't help, if it's beyond even my expertise, then I'll say pro desk session. We also have phone support, so that's always a great resource. And then Smartsheet University, which I'll just go into very briefly. Let's see if it'll. Okay, so there are a lot of trainings in Smartsheet University. So it's a really, really good resource for us and a place to go if you're trying to really get familiar with Smartsheet. So, they have, basic trainings, then they have premium application trainings. Some of them are instructor-led events, some of them are self-paced. Some of them are free, some of them are paid courses. So it's really just based on what you need to do, what you can do in your department, but I do want to let you know about this because it is a really great resource.
Yeah, and I will note, be sure that when you're on Smartsheet University, you sign in because this right here does not show all the courses that we have available to us. Once you sign in, if you're a licensed user, you'll have access to even more things on here, um, such as like they have a core app like training. It's um, a whole like pathway, and then you can earn a badge at the end. So we, so far twice we've had a core app training badge sprint where we've kind of had a cohort go through and work on those trainings all at the same time so we can ask each other questions. But so my recommendation there is to be sure to log in. If you have a license, you'll have access to a lot more trainings, a lot of really great stuff. And then if you're interested in something like the Core App Badge Sprint, where we do that cohort, definitely look out for our newsletter because that will have the latest information on our next one. And we haven't set a date for that one yet, but we will. And that information will be out in the newsletter.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Um, all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and go back to the main page here. Um, so I just want to say again, if you want to join the user group, most of you might already be in there, or you heard about this training somehow. So most of you might be in there, but if you're not, join the user group, and we'll add you to our newsletters and to the Teams page. The Teams page is also a really helpful resource to go in there and say, hey, I'm trying to do this, what's going on, and other people throughout the HSC that have that expertise can chime in and help you out. So we are trying to, we've built that resource and it's been going pretty well. So that's really helpful, I find. And then also, Smartsheet doesn't have outages that often, but if there are issues, we will try to announce it on there. I'm hoping that we're not gonna have an issue today, but we'll see, because it's being a little weird with me. So I'm gonna go ahead and sign in here. So whenever you sign into Smartsheet, again, it's not your email, it is your net ID and your password, the one you use to log into your computer, your HSC net ID and password. So if you do put your email in, which I've seen people do sometimes, it's of course, it's not going to let you. So this is the homepage that you're going to see when you log into Smartsheet. So this is your suggested, and then you can toggle over to all workspaces. But it's really going to bring you again your suggested items, the things you're most likely, you're most recently went into, things like that. So I'm going to talk over this left-hand toolbar here. So again, this is the home page. You can you have some customization there if you'd like. I personally don't use it that much, but it can be helpful to you. I find that I have a lot of Smartsheet items, so a lot of things pop up for me. The one underneath it is notifications. So any notifications that get sent to you, maybe even from a different person's Smartsheet, if it's in Smartsheet in any way, it's going to show up in your notifications here. Most of the time you're going to get emails as well, so you don't really need to come in here. But if someone tells you, hey, I sent you this update request or something, and you're not finding it in your email, you can come here to your notifications and it should be here. So if you missed it, you can go here and you can toggle over from all to requests. So what is specifically needed of me that I haven't taken action on, or, that I, might have missed, you can look through that there. And then the next one is the search bar. So, pretty straightforward. If you need to search something specifically in Smartsheet, you can use the search bar here. And the next one that I use the most is this folder icon here. And you can see at the very top, it's going to give you work apps, data tables. So if you have, we're not going to be getting into that today, but if you have any work apps or data tables, you would go there for that. The main one is workspaces. They're we'll talk about that shortly, but they're basically shared folders in Smartsheet, resource views, and then deleted items. So another one I get a lot is people that didn't mean to delete something, and they're like, where do I find it? It's probably in your deleted items. It'll stay there for a while. So just keep in mind that that is a folder that you have access to. So going back into workspaces, if you were shared to a workspace, if you create a workspace yourself, it's going to be here under workspaces. You could also find items through sheets. Like I said, I'm shared to a lot of stuff, so it's a little harder for me to find it this way. I like to organize in workspaces. So we're going to go ahead and go into that now. We're going to look at that. So I'll go into mine in this workspace that me and Dina have. So you can see in here, I have the main workspace, and you can see who it's shared to. It's shared to Dina and I. And then inside of it, you can have regular folders as well. Those are not specifically shared to people right now, I guess. They're not shared individually. It's just a way to organize. And then you can see we have sheets in here. This is a dashboard icon, which we'll talk about in a minute. And you can have all different Smartsheet items in here related to this specific workspace. And the good thing is anything new that I create within this workspace is going to be automatically shared to Dina, at least at the level that she's shared to in the workspace. So that is a very nice way to, someone is involved in this particular project. You just continue to build the items within the workspace. But just keep in mind that if you're unsure kind of what levels of permission you'd want to give to people in the workspace, it's best to share them as a viewer in the workspace. Um, and then give access as needed into the individual items. So maybe, you want someone to be able to see all the items, but you don't really necessarily want them touching anything in there except this one sheet. Then you can go into that one sheet and give them a different type of access. All right, so we're going to talk about the different items that we can create in Smartsheet, and then we'll actually go into the grid and start talking through it. But I just want to go over each item. Does anyone have any questions yet? All right. So if you do have questions, feel free to, unmute or throw them in the chat. All right, so I'm gonna go. So the way that I like to create items, so you can do it from different areas. You can start a new project, program or process here. I personally like to go to folders and create from here because then I can put it where I want it. Sometimes if you do it on that other page, it'll build a workspace for you. It will kind of throw a bunch of stuff together, give you sort of like a template. Um, but I personally like to go here. And actually, I'm so sorry. I'm going to talk through these really quickly because there's just a couple left. On the left-hand toolbar here, this is your recents tab. So you'll see these are the recent items I pulled up. You could also, you see the little push pin. You could also pin things to the top. So I'm in the licensing sheet a lot, so I pin that and different things there. And then also just your favorites. You can favorite, you could see here if I go over to the workspace, this little star, you can favorite items, which would be here in your favorites tab. I don't really use these too much. Resource management, we do have access to it though if you want to learn more about it. Smartsheet University, and then work apps, and then this is the solution builder. This is where all of the templates will be. So if you do want to browse templates, if you have an idea but you're not sure where to start, this is a great place. They give you the templates, they show you how to use them, there's little videos, things like that. So really helpful stuff there too. But when I go to create something, I know I have something in my head, I know what I want to create. I do go to the folder icon to do that. And then up on the upper right side here, I'm going to go to create. And now you can see that these are all of the options we have when we go to create. So we have grid, which is the main item that we're going to use in Smartsheet. If you're going to build a dashboard, if you're going to build a report, anything is really going to need a grid to work off of. We have task list, project, cards. These are all just different views within the grid. So some other main ones here is you can import from Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Project, Google Sheets. I don't know this one, but you have this option if you use it. You can import items. So that's, if you do have an Excel document that you're trying to get into Smartsheet, try it out, see what it looks like. I will say sometimes the way that we use Excel is not the way that we use Smartsheet, so it can look a little wonky, but that just depends on what you're trying to put into Smartsheet. Okay, so some of the main things are, this is where you would go to create that workspace. So again, that's just a shared folder. So that's where you would do that. And then we have the basic folder. Again, that's just like a folder on your computer. We have work apps down here, which again, we're not really going to get into. But you can learn more about that on Smartsheet University. Hopefully we can hold a training on that soon. All right, so the other main ones here are report and then dashboards. You just saw the Smartsheet dashboard that we had for our resource portals. A lot of people love dashboards. It's a really great way to get your information out there. You can embed it on your web page or something along those lines. So, it's a really great tool. The great thing about reports is that when you build a report in Smartsheet, it's going to be tied to your grid, which is your main sheet, and it's always going to be a live report. So it's going to be a filtered view of your sheet. You can say, I want to show this column, this column, this column. Let's leave out this one. Let's leave out this one. Maybe you even want to do like a count. It can do some metrics, a little bit of metrics there for you. And also it can it can do like a filtered view. So say, oh, I only want to see open projects on this report or something like that. And you could build as many reports as you want for the grids that you're building. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the grid here. Um, okay, so when you do that, it makes you name your sheet. And then you can go ahead and open it here. It'll be highlighted so you know where to find it. So this is what you're gonna see when you open, when you create a new sheet. So there's some basic formatting up here. You can kind of look through that. Really basic formatting. But something that's a little bit different than Excel is when you hover over. So this is a row. Whenever you hover over, you'll see that there's some different options here. So you can attach items to this specific row. You can start a conversation within the row. So, you can make some comments specific to this row. Um, and then you can add a proof. So if you do proofing and things like that, you do have the option to add it to this specific row, as well as set a reminder. So if you wanted to remind yourself about something on the specific row, you can do that. So I'm going to go into each of these. This is our primary column. The main thing about the primary column is that it always has to be a text field. So let's say I'm building this sheet with the intention to create a form tied to it. I would usually something that I know needs to only be text. It doesn't need to be an email or validated in any kind of way. So maybe this would be, name. So maybe we would do something like that. The primary column can be used to create hierarchy within your sheet. So that's a good use for it. Dina, do you have any more? I don't really know much more about the primary column, honestly, other than the hierarchy text field. I don't find much other use in it.
Yeah, and um I think some of the things is that you're also limited based on that. For example, I don't think you can do like a column formula with a primary column. But also, one of the things that that you just need to keep in mind when creating your primary column, um, is that later when you build a report, a lot of times it will require that that primary column is the first column in your report. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind. So, for a lot of the stuff I build, the name field is kind of the perfect primary column. If I'm looking at something more project management, that's probably a task name, so maybe I'll just call it task. Um, if
Project
it's,
title, yeah.
yeah, and if it's something maybe where I'm, having timekeeping or something like that for 5 hour or 2 hour time, maybe I'll make that the last name field because it's it's kind of nice to have it separated, last name and first name, depending on what the sheet is. If it's something a little more simple, then, you know, name is perfect. But um, yes, so and even the little pop-up thing that came up, your primary column, each sheet has to have a primary column. You can rename it, you can, kind of change things like that. In a sheet, you can move it around. Um, there's even been sheets where I just go and I hide it because I'm like, I need to be able to kind of have a manipulation for like everything, each one of these columns, and maybe all of them need to be drop down options. Um, a primary column cannot be a drop down option. It can't be, symbols because we'll see that there's symbols we can use. And so there's some cool things. Primary column can only be the text or number field.
Yeah, all right. And yeah, like Gina said, sometimes, I mean, depending on the process, I also hide it. In a report, I try to, hide it too, sometimes because I don't really need it. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't anything I was missing on that. So I'm gonna go ahead. You can click on this three menu, or you can double click into the column itself, and it'll give you the options. I'm gonna go ahead and click on the three dots so you can see what is here. Whenever I click on that, you could also right click. Um, but when I click on this options button here, you can see I can insert a column left, insert a column right. I could delete the column. I could rename it. I can add a column description, which is really nice sometimes because Column names, column titles do have a character limit. So if you need to give a little more insight, summarize this column for your team. If you need to give a little bit more insight into what this column is, because maybe you reached the character limit, I see this a lot with like survey questions. So maybe you're creating a survey for someone, but it gets cut off because of that character limit. You can add a column description so we know exactly what this column is about. So that's a helpful option there. You can filter and then you can sort the rows, just as you would in, Excel. You can lock a column. So that's helpful, especially, if you don't want anyone to be touching anything in it. You can freeze the column and like we mentioned, you can hide the column, show Gantt chart, edit project settings. Okay, yeah. Um, and then edit column properties, which is what I'm going to go to. This is kind of the one of the main things that you'll want to be adjusting in your sheet. So I'm going to go into edit column properties. Again, you can double click on the header to get here. So I'm going to go ahead and put task, let's do status. And I'm going to go to column type and we're going to talk through the different column types. So you can see there's text number. This is free text. Anything can be put in here, which sometimes is the case. Like we mentioned, maybe you have a task title, maybe there's a person's name. That's all free text. But I would recommend using other options as far as, just for data purposes go, especially if other people are going to be entering into your sheet or through a form, because it keeps things a lot cleaner. So if you can, if the list isn't 50 plus 100 plus options, you can do something like a drop down list. So I could put pending, started, completed, something like that. And then we can select from a drop down list rather than let them just put whatever they want in there. Maybe we don't necessarily want a comment from them, we just want a clear status. So we can do something like that. And oh no, took it off.
And while
Um,
while you're redoing that, I did get a really good question in the chat, and I know that not anyone else can see it, but I did have someone ask, like, what is the difference between locking a column and freezing a column? And I think they are different, so that's a great question.
mhm.
So, let's say this sheet was shared, maybe, Jillian's creating it, she shared it with me and gave me admin access, but then we gave, you know, so and so editing access. Now, Jillian or myself, because we're both admin on the sheet, we have that admin permission, and to be an admin, you need to have a license. But we kind of have an elevated level of access, right? So we are able to go and lock a column. And if we need to, we could go and edit the column as an admin. If someone is shared to the sheet just as, like an editor or below, if that column is locked, they cannot change anything. Now, freezing a column is actually where it kind of freezes that pane, and then now your scroll bar, you can scroll along kind of the rest of the sheets. And so sometimes it's really great to use if you wanted to freeze like the name column. And if you had a bunch of other columns and you needed to see something at the end, you can scroll those ones, but keep that name frozen. So that way you can easily see that one.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, so perfect. So this is freezing, and it's hard to demonstrate now since we only have so many columns,
yeah, we don't
but
have very many.
yeah, but kind of the more columns we add, then you'll see those two over here stayed frozen and the rest are moving. You can still, anyone who, has editing access can go and still make changes in those columns, right? Because they're not locked, but freezing it just freezes the view pane. So perfect.
Yeah. All right. So now you can see, now that I made this a drop down list, if someone comes in here to select a task status, they can only select from the ones that I have provided them with. So, I can go ahead and, let's put task one started. Another thing that you can do is, if you had like a task status, we do have symbols, which can be nice to look at. So, maybe you want like a symbols column. Maybe instead of like pending started, you want like a red yellow green, something like that, depending on what it is, right? Maybe you have like a, like I said, like a survey. Maybe you're trying to kind of do something like that. There's different ones here, little like face ones and, hearts, stars, things like that. So you can do that. Um, just to talk through the different column types. Another really important one is a date. So let's do like start date here. And then we'd restrict to dates only. This is a great way, again, for data purposes to actually make sure that they're putting in a date here. And Smartsheet has the ability to send emails to people. And one of the things that we do often is, so let's say um, the start date is the 24th, and we want a reminder to go to someone 5 days before the start date to let them know. If we don't make this a date column, Smartsheet is not going to know. So if this was just a text field and we went and put the date in, even though let's say we put the date in exactly like this, Smartsheet is not going to know it's a date unless you make this a date column. So you won't really be able to build automations run off of a date if you do not make it a date column. Similarly, uh, let's go ahead and do task manager here. Another really important one is contact list. So you don't really need to create a contact list in here, but you do need to make it a contact list column. It's a little bit confusing. I don't know why it's titled contact list. I kind of wish it had a different name. But you don't need to import contacts in here or anything like that. But this is another way for Smartsheet to realize, hey, this is an email. This is an actual email. So you'll see when I put it in here. If you do create a list, you can restrict it to the list value. So, if I wanted to add specific people in there, you can do that. So only specific people can be chosen from. But you'll see whenever I go ahead and add this in, you can see it gives me this drop down as I start typing. So let's say I wanted to put Dina in. It's going to kind of go through our directory, and you can see that Dina popped up, even though she's not really on this sheet or anything like that. I'm sure I can add, other people. But I'm going to go ahead and add Dina, and, it's going to give me some, hey, do you want to notify people? I'm just going to select not right now because I'd like to create those myself. Another good thing is you can allow multiple contacts per cell. You can do the same thing with the drop down menu if you'd like. So maybe there's two task managers here. Did I save that? Okay. So let's say Dina and then also myself. And then you can see we're both in there. So if I have any notifications going out to the task manager, it'll go to both of us. Just to talk through the column types a little bit more, we have duration here. I've never used duration. I don't. Have you used it, Dina?
Yes, so duration is really great for if you're doing project management.
Okay.
So if you're using like a, Gantt chart and really building out that project management, first I would recommend to kind of start with a template because it'll add all the columns you need. But second is that they do have a duration column, and that's where oh, that task, we have a start date, an end date. The template will automatically calculate that for you and tell you, oh, that's a 3-day duration or whatever. So,
Yeah.
so that's where that duration column helps.
All right. Yeah, thank you. I remember seeing that in a sheet. All right, so we talked about contact list. We also have a checkbox, which I tend to use often. We have, you can choose different styles. There's this just normal checkbox, there's a flag, and there's a star. It's all going to do the same thing. I don't know how much I don't think we'll get much into formulas, but you can build formulas off of checkbox options. You can run automations off of them. So maybe you want to send it when something is checked, send an email when the box is checked. You can do things like that. Then again, you can restrict to checkbox use only. So if you don't want people typing in this column, you just want the checkboxes, you'll want to toggle that on. So let's like say, I don't know, I don't think we would really need this in this particular sheet, but let's say we wanted to do like a completed checkbox, we can go ahead and do that. And then to talk through a little bit more, again, we have symbols, we have auto number. This is fun for ticketing. So if you receive requests and you want to create like an auto ticket number, you can do that. You can add a prefix and a suffix, and then, you can maybe just depending on how you want that ticket number to look, you can change this here. You can do a starting number, and then it kind of gives you a preview down there. So if I did like this, maybe I want like to look a little longer, something like that. You can do that. Um, so ticket number, we'll do that. And then we have created by and created date. Those are system generated columns. So if you have someone that comes in here, or maybe through a form, mostly if someone comes into your sheet and creates a row, it'll tell you created by, and then it'll give you their email. If it's through a form and your form is public, it'll just say Smartsheet user, because we're not really gathering that. But it's still nice to have in your sheet if you have a lot of people coming in and creating different rows or things like that. And then also created date, which a lot of people use. And then also modified by and modified date will show you the last people that touched it. So last person that modified the row, last person that, modified it, and the date they did it. So that's similar to the created by, who created it and what date was it created. This is helpful for submission dates. It captures that, so it's not necessarily us coming in here and putting a date ourselves. We know that it was created on this specific date, so that's really helpful to a lot of people. So I'm going to go ahead and talk just briefly over this. These are similar to the row options that we had here, except if you add an attachment here, it gets attached to the sheet rather than the row specifically. As well as the conversation. So this is, you could see there's row, conversation, sheet, all unread. If you do it here, it's going to be the whole sheet. So it's a conversation about the whole sheet rather than a specific task. If I wanted to talk only about task 1 over here, I'd do it here on the row. But if I wanted to talk about this whole sheet for some reason, then you would do it over here. And then as well as proofs, you can attach a proof to the sheet and do it over here. Brand folder, which we're not really going to get into very much. We have update requests, which we'll talk about in a minute. But you can view them here, any of the pending update requests that you have. And then you could also create a new request if you need to. And you can publish. So anything in Smartsheet you can publish. You can make it a public link. So if you want to publish your sheet, I would make sure that you don't have any sensitive data. Smartsheet is not HIPAA compliant, so I wouldn't have anything like that in here anyway. But you want to be mindful if you are publishing items in Smartsheet. But you do have these different options. So basic sheet without attachments, advanced sheet that allows you to download attachments and view comments, edit by anyone, and then you have calendar. So you do have those options. So if you have maybe like a basic, maybe it's like a potluck sign up sheet or something like that. Maybe you want to publish it so everyone can edit, and it's just public URL. You send it to everybody in email and they can all access it without having to sign into Smartsheet. And then they can go and say what dish they're going to bring or something. There might be reasons to publish it, but not something that you really use too often in like your project sheets, I would say. All right, and then you have an activity log, which is, you can see everything that I've done since I created this sheet is here in the activity log. So maybe sometimes you need to go and you need to, see a change that was made and you need to maybe revert it back. Maybe you made a mistake or something like that. You can look at that here. Also, just if you want to see, the history of what has been changed within your sheet, this is a good resource. You can adjust the date range. So maybe you're looking for data that was done in August, and you want to look back at that range and kind of, you're looking for a specific change, you can do that. You could also download it to an Excel document. So you can do that here in the activity log. We also have a sheet summary, which I don't know if we'll get into too much today, but I kind of describe it as like a mini sheet within your sheet. So it, like it says, it's a summary, so you can summarize data within your sheet. So maybe you add a field, so they're kind of like little mini columns, right? So maybe you want to like do like some type of count in here. You can do formulas over here as well as in the sheet. So maybe you're wanting to count all of your tasks, and it's kind of a summary that a manager can come in here, come to the sheet summary. Okay, how many do we have? Okay, now let's count the completed tasks, and you can build those all out in your sheet summary here rather than adding more columns to your sheet. So we can keep our sheet clean, but we can still get those calculations here. Um, on our sheet summary. Again, resource management here. Some connectors, I think that, oh, uh-oh. Some connectors that we have access to. I feel like this is, oh, that's AI, but I don't know if this is like the Jira one. Yeah, the connectors. You could definitely learn more about that in like Smartsheet University, kind of different Smartsheet information that they'll give you. I personally haven't used it. And then we have some cool AI features, if that's something that you're into, or even just if you need it. You could see this. This is a really popular one. Is the generate formulas. Um, Sometimes you want to, do something. Maybe you're not great with formulas. You can come in here and you tell it what you want it to do. So, I try to be. If you do know formulas in Excel or just in general, I try to make it as much knowledge as I have about it. Like, so I'll say like, I want to count if, like, want to use kind of the terminology if you can. But you just kind of say what you want it to do. It'll generate the formula for you. You put it in there, and a lot of the time it works. Maybe sometimes it doesn't, and you have to try again. But it's a really cool option to have. I would say, especially for if you're not very knowledgeable in formulas. Then we have analyze data. You can create little insights and charts, things like things like that. Just here within the AI tools, text and summaries. You can do different AI stuff there. All right, so I'm gonna have to kind of briefly go over because I know we don't have too much time left, but I do want to go over some other main items in Smartsheet that you will be using. So a big one is forms. So this is a way to get information from people out. It could be external people, it could be people within your team that you maybe don't want to have to log into Smartsheet. So I would recommend kind of laying out the foundation in your sheet first and then going to forms, and then you can either go to, if you have an existing form, you'll go to manage, but right now we're going to go to create. um you could see it's going to throw everything on here. Everything, it's going to match up with all of my columns. So let's say, I don't really need these ones. Maybe these are internal, right? Maybe they're something that I'm using like to track on the back end. I don't want them to have all these columns, so I don't want them to have the completed column either. That's something maybe I'm going to check that box myself when I've checked the work or something along those lines. But let's say I do want them to submit a new task through this. I want them to give me the name, the task status, and then start date, task manager, things like that. You could see whenever I click in here, I have different editing options on this right hand side. So these over here on the left, I have all the columns that I have in my sheet that are not currently on my form. So maybe I want to put completed back in here. I can drag it over. And then there's just some form elements, if you want to add a heading or a divider, or maybe even the file upload option. Maybe I want them to put, maybe I want them to put any files in here that relate to the project, right? So I'll put that in here. But whenever I click into it, you're going to see that on this side, it opens a settings kind of panel here. So I can do a couple different things here. I can add a long label. So maybe I'm going to say this is where you add the title to your project. I don't think I would really say something like that. You can also add that into the help text. So you can see there can be maybe just like oh no, it's starting to glitch on me a little bit. Um I can have a title, and then I can have help text down here. I can make it a required field. So they can't submit the form without filling in this here. You can put like default values in here. I can make it look a little different. So maybe if I only have a few options, I can do like vertical or horizontal buttons, things like that. And then
And
oh, it's
and we did have a good question in the chat that may be better demonstrated. A lot of these I've been able to answer as we're going, but
yeah.
one of the questions that we got was asking, like, if we delete columns from a form, will it delete it in the sheet too? So I said, well, it kind of depends on where you delete it. So, so I kind of wanted to show the difference on if, deleting it off of your form here with the little trash can, that that will just remove it from the form. That will keep it in your sheet, and that column will stay there, which is, totally applicable because let's say task manager. Um, if the person filling out this form doesn't know who the task manager is, if that's going to be assigned by a manager on the back end, then maybe we want to remove it off the sheet, but we still, or off the form, but we still want it on the sheet. If you want to delete out a column because you realized, oh, I don't need it in my sheet, I don't need it in my form, then I believe you could do so. Is it with the little edit button on the far right? Um,
You mean this one? I'm not sure if you
yeah,
could delete from a form. Oh no, I'm starting to glitch a little bit.
okay,
I'm gonna turn my video off. I don't think that you can do it on the form itself. I think if you're gonna delete, you do it from the sheet.
okay, yeah. And that was one where I was like, I think you can, but even when you opened it up, I'm like, no, that's not what I'm seeing. So you may have to go back into the sheet to delete it off. And so sometimes I'll go and I'll rename that field like delete or delete one, delete two, if I have multiple ones. So that way later when I'm in the sheet, I'll know which ones to delete.
Yeah, this customization here is going to be solely just based on the customization of the form that you're wanting to look at. If you want to actually change your column title, you'll do that here in the edit the actual field. Oh, I'm still glitching. Sorry, guys. Um, but the labels here, this is all going to be anything other than that field setting is going to just going to be what is shown on the form itself. So whenever if I go up here and I click save and then I go to open form, this URL, it's now a live URL. It's done. It's created. It's live. I can send this. I can put it in the chat and you guys can go and if you guys actually don't mind, go submit through there so we can look and see those submissions come through the form. So this is live now. I can add it on our webpage. I can put it on Teams. I can send it to my team and say, hey, submit your projects. It's live. If you want to add some security, you can toggle over to settings on this backend and you can do a couple things like, the customization, but you can also require login. So maybe you do want to, make the security a little tighter on this. You can do that. You can require login. You can restrict access. You can, do one of these little, the little things to I don't know how to say that, but you can do these different things if you're trying to restrict it a bit. But I'm gonna go ahead and go back because we don't have too much time, so I want to show you guys automations. So I'm gonna refresh. You can see this little button came here because those submissions came through. So you can see now I have, my auto ticket number. It did its thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's doing its thing over there, giving me ticket numbers. And then you can see every submission through the form adds a row to your sheet. So now I could go in here, I could add attachments. Maybe this particular one, I need to add an attachment here. I need to add a comment. I need to mention someone. I need to tell let's say I need to go in here and I need to say hey, and then you put at, and let's say I need to go Dina, please, update or something. I don't know. Oh, I have to give access, but I can do that, post the comment, and now I have this list of comments in my sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and go into automations here in a second, but I want to just kind of go to file here. This is going to be basic stuff. You can import, you can save as new, which gives you basically a copy of this sheet, save as a template, rename, refresh. You can share, you can send as an attachment, you can export this, and then you can delete it here. I want to very quickly go into sharing. We talked about this a little bit, but the good thing about Smartsheet is we have different sharing options. So you can see I'm the owner. Dina is an editor here. We do have different options on how to share people. If you want someone to be able to view the information in here, but you don't want them to update status or anything, you'd give them maybe just viewer access. If you want them to be able to comment on the row, you can give them commenter. more than likely a lot of the sharing will be editor cannot share and can share. That just means, they can share the sheet to other people or they can't, but they can basically edit any of the cells within your sheet. And then admin access, you do really need to be a licensed user to have admin access, or it's kind of pointless for you to have admin access. But you can give someone else admin access, and they basically have the same access as you, except they can't rename your sheet or delete it. But they have access to kind of adjust everything else in there.
And I will note, because one of the questions I do get is what's the difference between editor can share and editor cannot share? And that's literally like sharing the sheet. So an editor that can share can go and grant other people editor or below access. They can't start granting admin access since they're not an admin themselves. An editor that cannot share means that they can still do everything an editor can do, except they cannot share the sheet with someone else. And that's helpful if you're limiting it and you want to be sure that people don't accidentally share that sheet with people outside of, you know, those listed.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to go into automations. It's another really big one in Smartsheet, one a lot of people use. So we can see that there's create from a template, which you can do. I tend to create from scratch. So I'm going to go to create from scratch, and then I can go in here and I can add a title. So let's say task manager notification. It's starting to get glitchy on me. Okay, so every notification in Smartsheet is going to be run off of a trigger. So you can see right here it says when rows are added or changed. I can change that to when a date is reached. So again, that's really important to have your date column in there. When rows are added or changed, when rows are changed, or when rows are added. I'm going to go ahead and say when rows are added. And when any field changes, you can run it right when it's triggered, or maybe you want like an hourly report or a daily report, weekly. You can change that. I'm just going to say when triggered. So as soon as a row is added, I want to know. And you have different options down here. So you can alert someone, you can alert Microsoft Teams channel, Slack channel, you can generate a document, which we're not going to be able to talk about too much here, but you can have Smartsheet submissions be put into an Adobe fillable PDF. So that's what that is. Request an update, request an approval, assign people, change cell values. Maybe we want to record a date. So maybe we want to say when task changes to completed, record the date. So we want to maybe capture that date it was completed. We can clear cell values. We can lock and unlock rows. And then we can also move rows or copy rows. So maybe we want to move it to like an archive sheet or something when it's completed. We can do those things. So some of the main ones that I'll talk through is alert someone. This is a basic email. So it's going to go to the person's email. They can't do anything with it. It's just going to say, hey, here's this email. It's going to be a generic email that we create. You can see here, there's a body and a subject. So we want to put a generic type of message in here. But then down here is when you can add links to the sheet. You can put specific fields in there. So they will know that it's about this specific project, but your message itself will be a bit generic. Another one is going to be an update request. So maybe we need them to update a row, but we don't necessarily want them to be shared to the sheet. We don't want them to log in and go into our sheet. You can do an update request. Just keep in mind that any of the fields that you choose to add in here, they can update if you don't lock it on the back end within your sheet. So you want to only select really what they need to see and what you need them to update. Another commonly used one is approval requests. So it's similar to an update request in that, they get an email and on the email it says open request and they open it and it opens in their web browser right there. They don't have to log in or anything. But it'll say approved, declined. And you can see on the back end, we have a little bit of branching here. So you can say if approved, go here. If declined, go here. And we can keep building out that notification. So maybe I want to say if approved, add an action, send a message to me so I know it's approved. If it's declined, send it to the submitter to let them know their submission was declined. Something along those lines. So since we are short on time, we can't really dive too much into automations, but I would recommend playing with anything. within Smartsheet, just because it really doesn't hurt. It's how you're gonna learn. You just go in here, and it's not gonna hurt anything to create something and just kind of mess around with it. We are coming to the end here, so I do want to stop in case there are any questions. But yeah, that's the basics of Smartsheet. That's how to get started with your grid. Um, we do hope to hold more trainings. If you do want to join those, definitely sign up for our user group so you can get our newsletters. You can be on the teams. You can see these as they come through. We do want to dive into a lot more for you guys. But does anyone have any questions about anything before
I-
we let you guys go?
If possible, can you show on automations where to change those permission level settings for notifications
Oh,
to
yeah, yeah.
unrestricted? So, because we got a question in the chat, so that, and I think this might be the answer to what it is. Um, so yeah, because I'm like, since we had that open, if you could share your screen. Essentially, what happens is that by default, whenever you create a sheet, the kind of notification settings are set to restricted. So that means that the only people who could get notifications are those who are shared to the sheet. So for Julian's example, I got shared to the sheet so I can receive it, but if we were to add someone else or use a contact column, they wouldn't be able to. So when you're here at the automations screen, head up to settings there. And from there, see it's by default set to restricted. If you change it to unrestricted, then that means that anyone can receive those notifications. And I mean, the email has to be triggered somehow, right? So maybe their name is in the contact column, or we added it as, hey, they're going to be an approver for, all these purchases, and you have their email in there, but maybe they don't have access to the sheet. We do that for a lot of executives, right? We're like, they don't need the sheet, that's too complicated for them. They just need the email where they can approve it. So pretty much everything I set to unrestricted, because that email has to be populated somehow, so I shouldn't have any issues with that. Um, so hopefully that answers that question. And I think we should have another session just entirely on automations, because it can get um, complicated and into the weeds. And, today we're just giving a high level of everything. And I know we're out of time.
Yeah, but if you guys do have questions, feel free to hang out. We'll be on for a few minutes. So if you have any questions, let us know. Thank you for coming to the training. It was very high level. We do want to hold more. So definitely, join the user group so you can get notified.